The left AIC chain, or the left anterior chain, you guys, is a chain of muscle of the diaphragm, the psoas muscle, the iliacus, the TFL, the vastus lateralis, and the biceps femoris. So this is that polyarticular chain of muscle that I talked about you earlier. That's a continuous chain of muscle from your diaphragm all the way down to your knee. So if we look at that from the side, this is the diaphragm coming down to the psoas muscle, to the iliacus muscle, to the TFL, vastus lateralis, to the biceps femoris. That is a polyarticular chain of muscle. We have 3 courses that take this chain of muscle and dissect it out with what's going on. In the postural respiration course, they look at this chain up here. We're going to talk a little bit about the diaphragm, we have to. But they talk about the diaphragm and the psoas muscle with how it influences the same left AIC chain that we're going to talk about today. We also have the myokine course, which is another core course that talks about the TFL, vastus lateralis, and the biceps femoris. And that's myokinematic. And now you have this new course that we're introducing that's talking about this chain right here that deals more with the iliacus muscle. But isn't it kind of fun to see how the pelvis is going to integrate a postural respiration and a myokine course? So this is going to help, if you have patients, for those of you that have been doing PRI, that are getting 80% better and you're wondering what you're missing, and you understand postural respiration and myokine really well, you might be missing the very foundation that can integrate those two together, which is what we're going to spend our next 2 days about. Because if you don't have frontal plane control of an innominate bone, of an inlet and an outlet, you're never going to integrate full respiration of a thorax. You're never going to have your patients that completely rotate a trunk. And if you can't rotate a trunk, you cannot rotate a pelvis. And if you can't rotate a pelvis, how are you going to get a femur to be in the right position? Any questions about polyarticular chain of muscle and with how it influences in the left AIC pattern? We're going to be going through, in a left AIC pattern, we're going to be going through step by step with what's going on with the inlet and the outlet. In your left AIC pattern, you have an ilium and a pubis. You're going to notice, you guys, I have femurs that are gone. This course is about an innominate bone. Remember that your innominate bone is broken into 3 different parts. You have an ilium, you have a pubis, and you have an ischium. Okay? So we're going to be talking about the inlet. You're going to be thinking about ilium and pubis. And the outlet, we're going to be thinking about the ischium. So when we're talking about the inlet, on the left side, whatever I talk about that's going on the left side, the opposite is happening on the right side. I'm trying to decrease confusion, so we're just going to be talking about what's going on the left side. So if the left side's going forward, the right side's going to be doing what? Going back, just to help to decrease confusion. So we're going to just be talking about the left side. So in a left AIC pattern, in your inlet, your left ilium and your pubic bone is going forward. Is forwardly rotated and anteriorly tipped, or is going into flexion. That's one plane. There's our sagittal plane. Remember, we're triplanar. So we have an ilium and a pubic bone that's going forward. The second thing that's going on with our ilium and our pubic bone is that it's going into external rotation. So it's going forward, and your ilium and your pubis bone is going into external rotation. So flexion, external rotation, in respect to the contralateral side. Remember, I have an attitude about frontal plane. So we're going into flexion, external rotation, and abduction. My ilium is moving into abduction. It's moving away from the right side. So it's going into flexion, external rotation, abduction. Flexion, external rotation, and abduction. The combination of that triplanar motion, we're going to call that iliopubo-external rotation. In PRI, the first letter you guys are going to see here is going to talk about the ilium. The first letter is what is moving. The P is what is moving on. It's moving on the right pubis bone. So my ilium is moving on my right pubic bone in a combination of triplanar motion of flexion, external rotation, and abduction. So we're going to call that iliopubo-external rotation. I'm not trying to give you acronyms to create more confusion. For those of you that have never been to a PRI course, this is going to be fun, not a big deal. For those of you that have been to a PRI course before, it's the same thing as AFER. But we're not talking about how an acetabulum is moving on a femur. We're talking about an innominate bone moving on another innominate bone. So my left side is moving into flexion, external rotation, and abduction, or iliopubo-external rotation. And that's the same thing as left AFER. So if my left side is moving into flexion, external rotation, and abduction, my right side is doing opposite. Okay? Any questions so far? Everyone understands the inlet position anteriorly.